All right, well, welcome to the 2021, make sure I say this right, 2021-2022 school year. Really excited that so many of you are able to join us this evening as we jump into some really important back to school information. It's nice to see the faces of some of our children on the call as well as the adults. So just really excited that we're going to start welcoming children back into the building next week. So for those of you who don't know me or who are new to Denison, my name is Natalie Fickus. I am the principal. I am starting my 18th year with Denver Public Schools. I taught for 10 years as a special educator before going into school leadership. Worked as an assistant principal for, I guess 6 years, and then have been a principal. This is my second year. So really excited to be starting this year at Denison. When I'm not at school, I like to spend time with my family, my husband, Ted, my daughter, Lulu, who's going to be a senior in high school this year. So that's kind of crazy to believe. And then my son, who is, he's grown and flown and lives in Arizona. So I also have a 2-year-old border collie named Rosie, and like to spend time walking her and playing with her. And you know, when I'm, like I said, when I'm not at school and have time to do some of these things, I like to read and cook and sew and all kinds of things. So hopefully I'll get to meet those of you who I haven't met yet in person really soon. I also wanted to take some time and introduce, we have several new staff members at Denison this year. We have Miss Erin Walker, who's a lower elementary lead teacher and is teaching first, second, and third grade in a lower elementary class. We've added a social worker who's going to be at Denison 4 days a week this year in support of our school psychologist, Miss Ellie. And so our social worker's name is Liana. Michael Cordova has switched into the literacy interventionist role this year. He's been in many roles in Denison over the years and is really excited to be working with 2nd through 5th grade as a literacy interventionist. We also have Miss Tara Crew, who's on the call, and other people may be on the call, but I saw her before all these folks started popping in. But Miss Tara's on the call this evening. She's going to serve in 2 roles at Denison this year. She's going to be a math interventionist. And then we have changed one of our specials from just pure technology to a STEM special. And Miss Tara has a lot of knowledge and passion for STEM, so I'm really excited to be able to provide that special to our students in kinder through 6th grade. We've also added Suzanne Vitullo, who will be supporting our students who are multilingual learners. And then we've added several new assistants, also known as paraprofessionals, to Denison this year. So if you see someone you don't know, introduce yourself and get to know our Denison staff. All right. So this slide may be a little hard to see, I'm not sure, but I just wanted to take a minute just to stress that Denison has been in the Southwest community of Denver for 30 years. We are DPS's original public Montessori school. And so we are completely devoted to our mission of providing a high quality Montessori education to all students in a public school setting. And for those of you who are new to Denison this year, I think it's important for you to start thinking about why Montessori. You chose Montessori for a reason. And so you're going to learn a lot along with your children about the fact that Montessori is a very different approach to education and teaching and learning, and that we really are invested in how a child learns just as much as what children learn, and really focusing on the whole child and not just test scores, but students' social emotional development and their sense of community and their passion for investigating the world. So I'm just going to give a little more background because I felt like we might have a lot of new parents here this evening. So some of the things that you see in a more traditional classroom might be textbooks. A lot of that's moved to Chromebooks at this point, but textbooks, pencil, paper, worksheets, photocopies, more focus on core content area with not as much to focus on the social emotional development. Studying one thing at a time through a math unit or a reading unit or a writing unit. along with that individual subjects. Whereas with Montessori, the classrooms really focus on providing children with a rich, prepared environment with an assortment of kinesthetic materials that allow children to manipulate what they're learning and learn through multiple senses. They also, the materials have what's called a control of error, so that children can correct their own work without having to always seek support from an adult, which is really working on developing that sense of independence. The working and learning is matched to the development of the child, and so the teacher is going to follow the lead of the child within limits. So meaning a child is going to have some choice, quite a bit of choice in what they may engage in. But if a child needs to work on reading and hasn't worked on reading in a little bit, the teacher is going to make sure to present those opportunities to the children just as well. And the Montessori curricula is a unified and international curriculum. And it integrates, like I've talked about, the whole child, and really gives students opportunity to apply what they're learning in core content areas to areas of interest to them. Right, and just a little bit more with the Montessori method. Really proud of the fact that our schedule this year is allowing us to go back to a full morning of uninterrupted work cycles. That's something that was really challenging last year just because of so many constraints that we had with COVID. But so students will come in the classroom and they will be with their homeroom teacher. This is more for the lower elementary and upper elementary grades. But they'll be with their homeroom teacher all morning without having any kind of regular special scheduled. So they're going to have that really focused 3-hour block in the morning to deepen their understanding of what they're working on. If you didn't already know, Montessori classrooms do have are multi-age. So what we call our primary classrooms will have our 3-year-olds, our 4-year-olds, and our kindergartners. Then our lower elementary classes have our 1st, 2nd, and 3rd graders, and our upper elementary students have our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. So that makes us also a little bit different than many other DPS elementary schools that might just have kindergarten through 5th, or they might have ECE through 5th, but we go all the way through 6th grade. One of the things, another thing about Montessori that's really important is we want our students to be active, so they can be up moving around the classroom, interacting with others, seeking help from other children. And then there may be longer periods of quiet, really focused work, but they are able to get up and move about the room, get the materials that they need, select spaces within the room to work. So it looks very different than a traditional classroom would. And so when our teachers are evaluating how our students are progressing, they're really focused on a body of evidence rather than just one assessment, and thinking about what components of a particular concept may a student need additional instruction in order to be successful with that entire process. All right, health and safety updates. I'm sure this is a topic that is probably pretty much at the forefront of many people's minds, given the fact that we are still in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So what I'm going to do is share a lot of information. If you have questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat box if you would like. But there is going to be time at the end of the presentation for question and answers. So if you want to jot them down or hold on to them, we can come back to questions you have later. So for health and safety, I've kind of split this up into talking about some of the things that are staying the same as last year. For those of you that were in person with us last year, this may seem familiar, but DPS has changed some of the guidelines that we are operating into. So I'm going to talk about what's the same and what's new for this year. So the same as we were doing last year, which we operated pretty much the whole second semester last year in person, ECE through 6th grade. So all staff and students must wear masks inside the building, and that's regardless of vaccination status. DPS does, as you most likely have heard, fall under the City of Denver's order that all staff have to be vaccinated by September 30th. So It doesn't really matter though right now what a person's vaccination status is currently. All staff and students must wear masks inside the building. Last year we had very rigorous hand washing schedules. We're going to continue to provide multiple opportunities across the course of the day for students to wash their hands. We don't have to have those regimented schedules, but we will be providing opportunities for regular hand washing. We are not being asked to provide physical distance with the same stringent measures that we used last year. It's encouraged, especially inside, as best as we can do it, but it is not required, especially when students and staff are wearing those masks appropriately over their noses and over their mouths. So some things that are different this year. Children may take their masks off at recess. So that's one of the things that we're talking about as a staff is like, well, how do we make sure a first grader who goes outside with the mask comes back in with the mask after recess? And so that may be something, if you can think creatively about a little lanyard or some kind of system. We're looking at purchasing some of those as well. And we do have extra masks and PPE at school. So if a child's mask does disappear during recess, it won't be a problem. We'll just have to make sure that we get that mask replaced before the child returns into the building. Last year, we had really stringent cohorting and bathroom limitations. We are not implementing, DPS is not implementing those same cohorting and bathroom limitations that we had last year. Which is good because, last year we had bathroom schedules and of course we made sure if there was a bathroom, this is mostly for lower L and upper L, primary was different. But last year, if a child needed to use the bathroom and it wasn't the class's scheduled bathroom time, we had to make sure no one else from a different cohort was in there, and we had to make sure, we followed all those rules. But DPS, in connection with their health partners at Denver Health, have determined that with proper use of masks over the nose and mouth, that we don't need to continue with those cohorting and bathroom limitations, which will make it much easier to resume normal operations for our children. So if a child needs to go to the bathroom, they'll just need to let their teacher know, and then they'll be able to go down the hallway to the bathroom. For our primary classrooms, 2 of our primary classrooms have bathrooms contained within them. So if you are in Miss Maria or Miss Patricia's class, your child's classroom will have a bathroom within it. If you are in any of the other primary classrooms, there is a set of bathrooms that those classrooms share, and we make sure that all of our primary children have supervision coming and going from the bathroom and while they're in the bathroom. But last year we could only have one group of children from one classroom in there at a time. This year we can have primary children from any of the 4 classrooms in there at the same time. One of the things that was really problematic for us in person last year is that Montessori materials, personal school supplies, all of those kind of tables all had to be individual and nothing could be shared. And so this year we are able to share Montessori materials. We are able to have students sitting at a common table, and it's going to look much more like a typical year than last year's in-person learning did. I have a lot of these health and safety pieces because there's just a lot of information, and I figured this would be something that would be important to many of you, if not every single one of you. So some more of what's the same. For our 1st through 6th grade students, we'll have what's called grab and go breakfast. So when students come in their designated doorways, they will have access to a table that has breakfast, a bagged breakfast that they'll be able to take to their classroom and eat. The grab and go breakfast is free of charge. It won't be any cost. Your child may eat it if they choose, but they certainly don't have to eat the breakfast. Sometimes children like to take the breakfast for a mid-morning snack, so they have some things to snack on a little later in the day. But we will continue to provide the grab and go for the 1st through 6th graders. For the primary children, they don't have to pick it up on the way in. The breakfast will already be in their classrooms, and every child will have access to a breakfast if they choose to eat it. If your child wants to eat hot lunch, there will be hot lunch available on a daily basis. It is also free of charge, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more later. But lunches are also free of charge this year. They are served in like a to-go box, clamshell box that has a lid on it, so that they'll get their meal and take it back to their classroom. We are not going to be starting the year off holding any large multi-class indoor assemblies. And this is also kind of like similar reasoning around the lunches, is that we're going to keep children, when they have their masks off indoors, we're going to keep them in smaller groups rather than letting them sit in the lunchroom where there could be, or there would be more people. So we're avoiding the lunchroom for meals. And we are continuing not to have large multi-class assemblies, indoor assemblies. Last year, we had all kinds of interesting one-way traffic patterns for our stairs and our hallways, and we don't have to continue with those anymore, which we needed traffic lights at a lot of our intersections within the building last year, and we won't have to do that again this year. This is one that I'm really excited about. Last year, we had the only special that we were able to provide in person last year was physical education. All of the other specials were streamed in through Google Meets, and the children had the specials in their classrooms. This year, all our specials will return to in person. So we are not doing any virtual learning in Denison this year. So children will go to PE, to art, to STEM, to music, and be able to engage with their teachers in person rather than through a screen. Oh, and this is another one that I think is really exciting. We couldn't use the library last year. We have a phenomenal library at Denison. And I'm really excited to get the library back up and running. It's probably going to take a little bit. It's not going to be ready right at the beginning of the school year because since it wasn't used last year, and we have a lot of books to shelves and some things to get ready before it'll be in shape to start checking books out. But I'm just really excited that classrooms are going to be able to access the library and children are going to be able to check out books again this year. We will be continuing with fall conferences that will be virtual this year. So fall conferences will be in mid-October. I should have put the date on here and I didn't. Fall conferences are going to be in mid-October, and your child's teacher will be reaching out to you to schedule a virtual meeting for you to get the opportunity to conference about your child's growth and progress. Then we've got some more new things rather than a lot of the same things. This is another one that makes me really happy, especially this week, as hot as it's been. We get to use fans and ceiling fans and swamp coolers and window units and things to keep our building cooler. Denison is one of the holdout buildings in DPS that is unair conditioned. We are slated to get air conditioning installed, but not for another, well, 2 more school years, including this one. So those heat mitigation devices are really important to keep our students and our staff members comfortable and functioning during the day. And so we get to use those again this year. Buses are also resuming service. So you can find your child, if your child qualifies to ride the bus, you can find that information in the parent portal under the transportation section. But buses are resuming service and will bring children to and from school on a daily basis, which is really exciting because we did not have bus service last year. We are also able to resume extracurricular activities after school and field trips. It's probably going to take us a little while to get our extracurricular plan up and running, but excited to be able to provide children with some opportunities for learning in other areas outside of the school day, and also able to start planning field trips. That includes things like for 5th grade students. Every 5th grade student in DPS, if you're a DPS alum, you know about this, but every 5th grade student in DPS gets to go to DPS's Ballarat property, which is a school out of doors property. And so we'll get to resume that this year. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that all of this stays the same and that our 6th graders this year are going to get to take their 6th grade trip. because the last 2 years of sixth graders have not been able to take their sixth grade trips. Just a few more new things, and then we'll move on to some other topics. Unfortunately, visitors and families are not going to be allowed past the front desk unless it's absolutely necessary or an emergency situation arises. I also got notification just late this afternoon that families will be able to come into the building if they're coming in for an IEP meeting, a 504 meeting, or a concern related to their child's IEP or 504 plan. And so that was good news. Hopefully that policy will change over the course of the year, and more visitors and families will be able to come into the building. But for right now, you'll be able to come into the building if you're signing your child in late, or you're picking your child up early, or your child forgot their lunch and you're dropping that off. Last year we had to stop everybody at the door, and we don't have to do that this year. You'll be able to come inside the lobby to do that. But visitors are not going further than the front desk at this time, with, of course, this caveat. We can have volunteers come inside the building if they have completed the DPS background check process for volunteers, and they have provided proof of vaccination. And so I'm waiting for, I saw that question just pop up in the chat box, but I'm waiting for confirmation. But I believe I'll have to take a copy of the vaccination card, or someone in our front office will have to take a copy of the vaccination card, and then it will be kept in a confidential file. But to volunteer inside the building, you will have to provide proof of vaccination. Unvaccinated individuals may volunteer outside the building, but they will also have to complete the background check that I mentioned before. And I think, let me check real quick. I think I can drop that link for the background check in a little bit later. But if not, I'll make sure that those of you who want it get that information. So our guidelines for quarantining have also changed this year. So quarantining is going to be required much less this year than last year, and it's going to be more focused on the individuals who were in close contact when they were unmasked, rather than in a whole classroom. So hopefully that's going to be much less disruptive than it has been previously, because as I alluded to before as well, we are not doing both in person and virtual this year. We're only doing in person. So waiting for additional guidance from DPS if your child does need to quarantine, if they do become sick or exposed and have to stay home, what we will do to provide work and make sure children have opportunities to continue learning while they're in quarantine. Last year, we had to health screen everyone who came in the building, regardless of what age they were or whether they were staff or family members. This year, sorry, I just pulled my earbud out. This year, only ECE students will be completing health screenings at the door, and that's because it's a state licensure requirement by the state ECE licensing board. So we are asking families, though, if your child is presenting with any health symptoms, runny nose, stuffy nose, cough, sore throat, loss of smell, loss of taste, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, anything, please, out of an abundance of caution, keep your child home and consult with your doctor or consult with our nursing services to help determine what steps you may need to take in support of your student. And I know there's some questions popping up in there, so let me see what I've got real quick before we move on to the next section. I think I already talked a little bit about vaccination cards for volunteers. Yes, we will have to provide proof of vaccination prior to volunteers being allowed to start within the school building. Close contact is defined as 15 minutes or longer unmasked. So that is a difference from last year. Last year it was 15 minutes or longer in the same classroom. And so I can say that with the protocols we had in place last year, and it's really hard in a primary classroom to enforce social distancing. I mean, our teachers did a great job of setting up their classrooms so that they had single tables and children working on the floor individually or independently. But you just can't help 3 and 4-year-olds, you know, they want to hug you or they want to say hi to their friend or, you know. So there were many times where children weren't always 3 feet or more apart from each other. And throughout the whole year last year, we did not have any cross cohort spread. So with masks, with hand washing, with being really vigilant about symptoms, talking to family members, if calling family members if they had cold symptoms, we were able not to have any spread within our classrooms. So, I like to be optimistic. So let me go back to the chat box. If a child comes to school sick, the child will be, it depends on the age of the child, but we'll get down to the health office and the family will be consulted. And if the symptoms are present, the child will be asked to go home. And then a member of the nursing services department will consult with the family to determine what next steps may be required before the child is able to return to school. So you'll get a phone call with the information that you've provided during registration. So that's why it's always important, if you have any changes of information during the school year, that you're keeping that information up to date, so we always are able to reach you at the best number or the best email address. So Lisa, your question is a good question. And oops, it just popped. There we go. Where to go? Do children have to be completely symptom-free? So if we know that a child has seasonal allergies, we have asked for documentation from your child's doctor's office saying that they have seasonal allergies, and then the child may be able to come to school with a runny nose. It's a little tricky right now with the air quality, to be quite honest. And so I think that's just going to be a lot of consultation and thinking about what the child needs. But with the changes in the quarantine guidelines, I would have to double check my resources just to make sure, since there has been so much change. But the time that a child would be asked to stay home would be significantly shorter than last year. Saj, yeah, with our younger children, our teachers are really vigilant to remind children to put their masks up over their nose. And it happens because we know, especially with smaller children, it's often hard to find masks that fit their faces well. And that do stay up over their noses. There's things you can do with twisting the loops and things that you can do to get adjustable masks and et cetera. But even with some of those measures, they do fall down. And so we come from that as a place of support and just reminding students to put their masks up over their nose. And so with that close contact situation, that's going to be something that the teachers are going to have to just be really vigilant in. And it's 15 minutes, and so hopefully a child is not sitting in a classroom for 15 minutes with their mask down that low, because really the only time the mask should be off is when children are eating or drinking. Lisa, back to your question, if they have a negative COVID test and are feeling okay, can they return? I have to go back and cite the updated DPS flow chart to be able to tell you definitively what the timeline is on that. I don't have it memorized because it changes all the time. So I will have to get that information for you. Thank you, Christina, for dropping that volunteer services in for us. Christina is one of our parents who is a volunteer and has, gosh, her youngest is starting at Denison this year, so she's going to have 4 at Denison this year, right? Anyway, so I appreciate you dropping that in, Christina. I'm not sure what this question, have we thought about implementing a school screening program from the state? I'm not sure if you put that question in the box, if you want to unmute and say a little bit more.
Hi. I was listening to Governor Polis, and he was saying that the schools can ask for the state to come in and contract and do screening that the parents would authorize. So nobody would be forced to screen, but they could come in and, if the parents wanted to participate, they could swab and do the really quick screenings
Oh, for like the
COVID.
actual testing for COVID?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, well, I haven't received any information from DPS about this, and DPS has been really consistent throughout the entire pandemic about implementing policies across the district rather than school by school. So that is something that I will watch for to see if it is something DPS engages in. They do have the COVID community tests that are available at multiple school sites. They're not rapid, like instant results, but I know I consistently get my results within anywhere from 22 to 36 hours. I know that's not the same as a rapid result, but they're the PCR tests and are pretty reliable as well.
Great.
Does that help answer that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to pop on to some other things that are happening during the school day. This is probably really small and hard for you to see. So this is information that your classroom teachers should be sharing with you. One of the things that we appreciated about some changes we made at Denison last year were changes to our drop-off and our pickup procedures and moving away from our car line that we'd had previously. So this year we are not resuming car line. We are going to continue with individual drop-off and pickup points for students at different grades. Many of the locations are the same as last year. A few of them have changed. So I would say please be in contact with your child's teacher about arrival times. I will say this is all included on this slide. It's just really small and hard to see. But lower elementary and upper elementary, the doors will open for students at 9:05 so that we aren't able to have them be in the lunchroom, as I mentioned earlier. So their individual doors will be supervised by an adult and will be opened at 9:05 so children can come in, get their breakfast, put their things on their hook, get to their classroom, get what they need, get settled, and be in their classroom by 10 after 9. And those doors for lower and upper elementary will stay open until 9:15. If your lower or upper elementary student arrives after 9:15, they'll need to come to the main entrance to get a tardy slip. And then at the end of the day, lower and upper L will begin dismissal from the same doors that have been identified for them at 4:05 for lower L. Upper L will probably be a few minutes later because they have specials right up until 4:05. So lower L will start coming out first, and then upper L will come out. Primary's arrival and dismissal times will be a little bit later to arrive and a little bit earlier to leave, just to make sure that we've got a little bit of stagger, so not everyone's trying to find same parking at the same time. But so arrival for primary begins at 9:15, and pickup for primary at their designated doors will begin at 3:55. So just a little bit shorter day for our youngest children. For our ECE 3 children that are half day, their day starts, the doors will open for them at 9:15 and their day concludes at 11:55. So children who ride the buses will still queue up on that south end of Yates facing south, and they will still go in the designated doors based on classes. We are figuring out the bus schedule, the bus supervision schedule, so that the children will not be released out of the buses unless there's an adult outside. And we may change this procedure and end up having the bus children just come in through the doors that are closest from them, because we may not have adults to walk them all the way around. But we will also be providing adult supervision to walk them from their classroom to the buses through the bus doors at the end of the day. So we're still trying to just refine and make sure we have everything working, and there may be some adjustments to that if it's not working. I think I covered a lot of this on this slide already. I don't think I said that if you miss your primary classroom, if it's a little after 9:30 and your primary doors are already shut, then you will need to bring your child to the main entrance to be signed in there, and then your child will be escorted by an adult to their primary classroom. If you need to pick your child up early from school, and it always happens, we know that's going to happen, you'll just come to the main entrance and wait outside. You'll be able to come inside to sign your child out. It says wait outside, but that's just a mistake. So you'll be able to come inside, and we'll call your child's classroom if they're in lower L or upper L, or we'll have someone walk your child down if they're in primary to come out the front door. Adults who pick up your child must have identification and must be someone that's on your child's contact list in Denison's computer system. So that's where all those emergency contacts that you list as registration are people that have your permission to pick your child up. So if you get in a bind and someone who is not on your list needs to pick your child up, you must call the school and give us authorization. And then we will definitely ask to see that person's driver's license before we would release the child to that individual. We are also asking that you stop coming for early pickup 30 minutes before dismissal. It just gets really hectic in the main office at the end of the day with getting kids ready for the buses and people calling to say, my child shouldn't ride the bus today, or I'm coming to get them, all those kind of things. And Miss Alice after 3:30, Miss Alice is our only staff member in the main office. So we're asking that early dismissal this year stop 30 minutes before your child's scheduled dismissal time. And that if you are going to be 10 minutes of dismissal, then you just need to wait until dismissal time to have your child leave for the day. Let's see. So KidSmart, I think when they created I see the question in the chat box around KidSmart ending at 8:45. I think KidSmart created their promotional materials before they realized that our bell times have changed this year. So their before care will be up until the time the child is allowed to go into class. There will not be a gap between KidSmart and when children are expected in their classroom. Okay, we've covered a lot of this already, but in the children's classroom, we're going to ask them to maintain distance as possible, wash hands regularly. Children are allowed to use water fountains this year, but we are strongly encouraging that every child keeps their own personal water bottle at their desk. We have water bottle fillers, and in the primary classrooms, they will just use the classroom to fill the water bottles. But that's just going to be a way to maintain some of our younger children haven't used a drinking fountain, and making sure they're not putting their mouths on the drinking fountain. So while we don't have to keep the water fountains closed, we are strongly encouraging personal water bottles for all children. And we already talked a little bit about supplies. We talked a little bit about hand washing, and I've had some conversations with parents around the amount of hand sanitizer we had to use last year. So less hand sanitizer will be required. Last year, everyone had to have a squirt before they came in the building, and that could be abrasive. So there will not be as much hand sanitizer. It's available for lower elementary and upper elementary. Primary children don't use hand sanitizer because of ECE licensing rules. But much less hand sanitizer, more opportunities to wash hands for a good 20 seconds. There will be hand sanitizer available in the building though, so if someone can't get to a sink and they don't have an aversion or an allergy or anything to it, that they do have access to hand sanitizer throughout the building. Great question, Danielle. Can kids play on the playground before and after school? Yes. And that makes me so happy that I don't have to be the playground police this year, because I just hated chasing people off the playground. Christina, yes, students can have individual lotion in their backpacks for their hands. Or they can keep it at their desks if they're old enough to manage that. We talked about some of this already too. Keep that water bottle handy. Personal snacks, food should not be shared, and that's common any year because you never know which child may have a food allergy, or the children may not know. So personal snacks need to stay personal, keeping that hand washing going, and replacing masks as soon as you're finished eating it. And I spent a lot of time helping out during lunch last year, and the kids were really good about if they needed to get up, putting their masks on to go get up and get us a napkin, putting their mask on as soon as they were eating, putting their mask on as soon as they were throwing their trash away. The kids were really, really good at learning the routines and meeting the expectations around masks. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about breakfast and lunch, and that hot lunch will be available daily. You see these two links that are on the bottom here. I'm going to see if I can drop these in for us real quick. These are a couple of really important things for every Denison parent to complete. There is an application, or there is a meal application in this My School Bucks app. And even if you don't think your family qualifies for free and reduced lunch, it is really helpful for every family to complete the meal application on myschoolbucks.com, because the more people, the higher percentage of families that complete the application, it helps with school funding for meals. And so really important to get that application filled out. So hot lunch, the ECE children leave before hot lunch is served. So if they are staying for KidSmart, hot lunch will be available for them. But if they're going home for the day, they'll get breakfast and a snack, but there will not be lunch. We touched on this a little bit too. If a child presents with symptoms at any point during the day that they didn't have, or they're just not feeling well, we'll make sure children get to the health office where they will be checked out and determine if they're well enough to go back to class, or if they do need to go home. And then if other steps are necessary, a member of the nursing services department will be in communication with you to make sure that you know what the expectations are for your child. So recess is back to pre-COVID conditions as well, meaning last year we had a very regimented, your class could only be on the field, or your class could only be on the blacktop, and they couldn't interact with children that they may know in other classrooms. This year, all of our lower elementary classrooms will be at recess at the same time. And they may play anywhere on the playground that they would like. So I'm really excited for that, because that was something I heard of concerns from families last year. Is like, oh, my child really misses this friend that they were in primary with, and we wish they could play together. And this year they're going to be able to. Primary is a little bit different because we have 6 primary classrooms. So 3 of the primary classes will be at recess at one time. And then while the other 3 are eating lunch, and then they flip halfway through the hour block. ECE4 children do stay for lunch. ECE4 are all day. And so they'll follow that 9:15 arrival and 3:55 dismissal, just like kindergartners do. And they will have access to breakfast, snack, and lunch. We talked about visitors already. If you do have any cold symptoms when you come to school to pick up, we are going to ask you to stay outside rather than come inside to sign your child out. You must have a mask to enter the building, just as I was saying before that all staff and children wear masks. If you're going to come inside to sign your child out, or to sign your child in, or to bring a lunchbox, you need to make sure you have a mask and your ID. Masks are not required for adults when they're dropping children off at drop-off or at pickup, but if you're going to be in close contact with any other individuals, I would strongly recommend that you have a mask available and wear a mask just to protect our community. We talked about volunteers a little bit. Here's where I had that linked. I just got a little ahead of myself before. So I feel like we've talked about this, so I'm going to keep on going. So we have a couple of different options for before and after school programming. The second option has just recently become an option. We've partnered with KidSmart for the last several years to provide before and after school care. Before care starts as early as 6:30, and then they do, if your ECE3 child needs after ECE care, that begins at 12 o'clock, 11:55 when their day is finished. That doesn't start until September 7th. And then after school care becomes available for primary at 4, and then lower and upper elementary. As soon as they're dismissed for the day, they'll be escorted down to get to the Kid Smart room, which is very close to the main entrance. Also, the Southwest YMCA, we've moved past the exploring, and they are going to be dropping children off in the morning and picking students up at the end of the day for before and after care. So that's another option if Kid Smart is full or doesn't work for your family. There we go. At this point, I'm going to have you guys hold questions. I've seen a couple hands go up. We're getting close to the end in the question and answer section of our evening. So I'm just going to have you guys hold questions. So, because I think we're really almost there. Wanted just to share some information on ways to get involved. We have a collaborative school committee. It's called CSC for short. And so this group meets monthly and is really thinking about strategic planning for the continued growth and improvement as at Denison, and does a lot of work around the budget and thinking about what we're doing well and what we need to get better at. We do need parent members of the CSC. The CSC is composed of parents, community members, paraprofessionals, and teachers. So it's a 2-year term. So we had a couple of parents complete their 2-year terms last year. And so we are looking for new members of the CSC. So if that is something that you think would be of interest to you, please send me an email and let me know. And then if we get multiple people that are interested, we would have to hold an election. And but if not, we'll get people on and get those meetings started in September. We also have what's called a PAC committee, Parent Advisory Committee. The PAC, also known as the ELA PAC, is the organization that is helping parents of our multilingual learners understand what's going on in the school and provide them with resources and information about English language programming. Those PAC meetings this year are going to be, we're going to have 4 of them. We haven't quite finalized the dates for them yet, but looking for members of the PAC committee. That committee is unlimited in membership and anyone is welcome. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, that information will be shared through the Flyer app. And we would love to have as many families as possible engage in those meetings. There's also Spanish translation available during the PAC meetings as well. Denison has a parent-teacher organization called Families of Denison Montessori, affectionately known as FDEM for short. So I've got the website here and can drop that in the chat box. But there's a way you can connect with them through the website. They do a lot of really fun community building activities and fundraising to support our classrooms and to provide teachers with teacher wish lists. Last year, unfortunately, we weren't able to do all the community activities that we have in the past, like the Fall Festival and the Fun Run. But we were able to do a virtual auction last year and raise some funds through that way. And I know that they're looking forward to getting back to maybe not all of the community activities that we've been able to do in the past, but adding more opportunities for families to get together, to socialize, and for children to get together outside of school, just to continue building our community. And then the last one I wanted to share was the Denison Montessori Street Team. And so this is for volunteers who are really focusing on supporting the safety and the exterior of the school. So that could be a volunteer who, let's say it's a snowy morning and you enjoy snow shoveling. You might say that you're willing to show up on those snowy mornings and help our facilities crew and our fantastic PE teacher, Coach Brian, clear the blacktop so that our children have a better chance of being able to get outside for recess that day. So if you are interested in the Denison Street Team, there's the email for that. And that brings us to the question and answer session. We've already answered a lot of questions, and I know some folks have been holding off, so I'm going to check the chat box, and then I'll come to those of you in the queue. Children do not have to wear masks outside at recess, Crystal. They certainly can. Just as staff members don't have to wear masks outside. Some of our staff members choose to wear masks outside. We started our week this week with an outdoor meeting, and many people chose to keep their masks on. If you want your child to leave their mask on, that'd be a conversation you could have with them about you want them to keep their masks on. I imagine we will have some that do, but they do not have to keep their masks on at recess. And then I think it's showing up as Lawrence Carroll first. Did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. I'm actually Marie, his mom. So I had a question. I talked to the Kids Smart people. They said that they're not going to start the ECE3 until September 7th. So is it going to be an issue if our ECE3 kid doesn't start until September 7th? Just because we don't have another option, for before and after care.
I would say be in communication with your child's teacher and just let them know that's the reason, to make sure that they know that you still want to come and that you're not giving up the spot, but that you just really need that after school piece before your child can start.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then next, is it Lauren? Luke's mom, I think. Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah. Hey, I had a question about, I saw on the application this year that you're requiring us to pick pronouns for our kids, and I wanted to see how that is going to be implemented, and then I also wanted to see how things have changed throughout this last year about curriculum, because
so we've not had any major changes to our curricula. We use a Montessori curriculum, and so that's different than other DPS schools. And so there haven't been any changes in that regard as terms of curriculum. The pronoun piece is coming because not everyone uses traditional he and she pronouns to identify. And so that then would involve a conversation between the family and the teachers or the staff, and making sure we're meeting their needs. But otherwise, if we haven't had that conversation with the family, we will just address a child with the pronouns or the gender that the parents have identified in IC. I'm not sure who is first, Christina or Mariah. I hope I said that right. Christina, why don't you go first?
For the parent-teacher conferences, will this be everybody, or will it be like we did before, where only if your teacher needs to speak to you?
For the fall semester, it should be every child should have a conference with their teacher. So we're resuming normal operations in that regard, just they'll be virtual. The late winter, early spring conferences will be in the format that if a teacher has a concern or a parent has a concern, then there will be an opportunity for conference, but not every child or family will have a conference in that second round. And then is it Mariah?
Yes. So I have a quick question. So is it ECE4 that is going to start on September 7th as well?
Yeah, and so one of the things I know it's different than other DPS schools, but that's one of the things that's, as a Montessori school, we do a lot of things differently. But we really want the kindergartners to get into that classroom first, because they're going to be the classroom leaders, and they are going to really get those routines down so that when the younger children join the classroom, they're able to provide that leadership and mentorship. So that's why the kindergartners are the first week. And then the ECE3s, this is their first experience with school, so they require a little more individual attention. And so that's why we phase them in over the second week of school. And so then this year is a little bit different, just because we have several new ECE4 families this year. But traditionally, many of our ECE4 children are returning from ECE3, and so they just pick up where they left off. Our teachers know this year they're going to have to do a lot of acclimating with their ECE4 children as well. But that's kind of the rationale behind that phased implementation with primary grades.
Okay, and they will be in the same classroom, correct?
ECE3s, ECE4, and kindergarten will be in a multi-age classroom. Yes.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Excellent. Kathy?
I was just wondering about the laptops this year. Are they going to be required to bring them to school?
They're going to need, especially the older children, they're going to need to have access to them. And actually all our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders are going to get new devices so that we have devices to cascade down to the younger children. You know, there's still a lot of uncertainty. Hopefully we're not going to get to a place where we have to go remote, like as a whole school this year. But the teacher will be communicating what the expectations are for how often those Chromebooks need to be in class. And it's definitely going to be different for upper L versus lower L versus primary. And in primary, only the kindergarten children get Chromebooks. The 3 and the 4-year-olds don't get Chromebooks. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Lauren again?
Will the kids be asked gender questions, like how they feel, or like what kind of gender do they feel like? That's what I wanted to know too, like along with my other question. I'm sorry.
No, that at this age, that's a conversation that's going to be initiated by the parent.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Or in the upper grades, it potentially could be initiated by the child, but certainly at the preschool age, that's going to be a conversation that's going to be initiated by the family. That was a lot of information. And so happy to stay on the line. Oh, I see some more hands come up. Kathy, do you have another question? Christina?
The Google Chromebooks, do they have to be the school issued ones or can they have the ones from home?
It is strongly recommended that they use the school provided ones, especially at school, because they work better on the network and they will filter things out that a Chromebook from an individual household may not filter out on our network. Skylar?
Hi, I was just wondering when we'll hear from our teachers.
That's happening this week. I was really hoping everyone would have heard from them today, but I will. Who's your child?
His name is Nico. His teacher's Miss Mary.
I will be in touch with teachers tomorrow and just make sure that they are getting in touch with you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Richard, I think you were next.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I was really curious about child absences, the procedure for taking your kid out of school, difference between excused, unexcused absences, things like that.
Excellent question. So if your child, you know, if you have an illness come up that's not COVID related, or you have a, you know, a family situation come up and your child's going to miss school, you just need to contact the main office and explain what the reason is. And it's likely that it will be marked as excused. It is, though, one of DPS's policies that like vacations are not considered to be excused absence. So if your family decides the week before or after Thanksgiving that you're going to spend extra time with family in Iowa, that would not be considered an excused absence.
Okay, could you clarify any consequences of that? Because that's what I'm kind of curious about.
Oh, yeah. Well, it kind of depends on the age of your child. But once your child is in lower or upper elementary, we do monitor attendance. And if excused absences become greater than 10 over the course of the school year, well, actually, once you get up to 5, you'll hear from a member of our attendance committee. And we'll just try and see what's going on, if there, you know, if there are supports that may be needed to help a family get a child to school, et cetera, what the barriers are that are preventing attendance. And then after 10 unexcused absences, we can refer families to the state for truancy. That is not something we like to do. So it definitely want to partner with the family just to try and identify what barriers may be present. But if we do get to a significant number of absences, then our hands do become tied and we're obligated to report a truancy.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Marie, did I get that right?
Yep. I just had another quick question. If our child has an IEP, are we going to be hearing from the teachers or the special ed team or both about that?
It will be both, and it's what age is your child?
He's ECE 3.
Okay, so our ECE provider for special education is not based at Denison. She's at multiple schools across. So you're more likely to hear from the classroom teacher first before you're going to hear from, her name is Miss Sylvie.
Okay, Miss Sylvie. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Jessica?
Hi, Jessica's mom, Alicia.
Well, she shows up as Jessica, so there you go. That's what I kind of thought. I was like, Jessica.
Question about, I don't know if I missed it. I know the school doesn't have air conditioning, so what is with the mask? I know, especially like as soon as they go back, it could get really hot in that school. What's gonna be the plan for that?
So I've been working this week in very close communication with what's in DPS called my operational superintendent. And so we've been monitoring classroom temperatures, especially on the second floor all week. And so if we hit a threshold that is too hot, then we could call a heat day. It is unclear to me. I was hoping to have more guidance on this before our meeting tonight. It's unclear to me if that's going to be like a snow day or if that's going to be a remote learning day. But if it does get too hot, that is a definite possibility that we may be calling families to pick their child up too early because the building is too hot. And you had asked a second part of it that I was going to say something about, and I was just going to say, you might have missed this part, but we are able to use ceiling fans, swamp coolers, the big cooling fans in the hallways to try and move air throughout the building. So we are able to use heat mitigation devices that we were not allowed to use last year. So hopefully with those pieces in place, we will prevent having to go into a heat day. But we'll work with DPS to make sure if it's hot in the building, we're going to make sure our kids are safe.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm not sure who was first. So Veronica?
Hi, this is our first year at Denison, and I wasn't
Welcome.
sure if we get a school supply list for the classroom or if all the supplies are already there.
You should be getting a supply list from your teacher. Each teacher, because Montessori classrooms, each teacher runs their classroom a little bit differently. We don't have uniform grade level supply lists. So you should be getting a supply list from your teacher. And sometimes the supplies, it may be relatively small list because we do request, it's a suggested $50 donation so that then the teacher can buy communal supplies.
Okay, thank you.
Amarina, did I say that right?
You did. Just following up on the heat question, what is that threshold number, especially for the second floor?
It's hot. It's 90 degrees.
Oh boy. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's hot. But we've been watching it, and even with today, we didn't quite get there. And we do not have like the big hallway. We don't have the big hallway swamp cooler fan set up yet, just because the building was under construction this year. And so we are still like finishing, the construction's finished, but just like getting the building ready and cleaning. We haven't been able to get all the heat mitigation devices up and running yet, but that's coming the end of this week.
Okay. Do those heat mitigation devices are those dependent on the classroom? Is that kind of something that the classrooms are expected to kind of sort through themselves? Or is that something you have like the resources for all of the classrooms?
I work in conjunction with the classroom teachers to make sure they have what they need.
Okay, thank you.
I saw a question about window units. Our windows are not really conducive to window units. So we would have to look at that individually. It is something that I'm just not 100% sure on. And I saw a question about the personal fans. I think that is something that I haven't really been asked that question before or thought about it. I think it would be okay as long as it was something that a child was able to manage and didn't become a distraction in the classroom. Go ahead, Lauren.
Will they be able to wear like neck gaiter kind of masks?
Good question. No, neck gaiters are not permitted under the DPS guidelines. They need to be a mask that fit over the mouth and under the chin.
So I have another question then. If they go to the restroom and their mask falls off, and like how would you guys handle that?
We have extras. We have extras available. So if something happens to a child, we do suggest that children keep an extra mask in their backpack or whatever kind of bag they bring to school. But in the event that they don't have one, we have extras. Christina?
Okay, my last question. The Google Chromebooks, will you give them to them on the first day, or how do we get the kids issued one then? Because mine used the ones from home last year.
They are not going to get one the first day, and they won't need one. They won't need one the first day. But our technology support partner, Zach, Mr. Zach, he will be in the building on Tuesdays, and so can prioritize children who don't have devices. And then if children have DPS devices, we can make sure they get them after children who don't have access to them have received theirs. Marie?
So, God forbid we have to go virtual this semester. Like, does that mean like all the kids, including us, like with the ECE kids, are going to be given those Chromebooks to take home? I mean, we just weren't here for last year to see how it happened.
Yeah, ECE3 and ECE4 children are not provided Chromebooks by DPS. Okay. So if we do have to go to a full-on virtual situation, it's usually through parents' phones, because it's just not really developmentally appropriate for our 3- and 4-year-olds to be in front of a screen for multiple hours. So the teachers would then work with the families to schedule check-ins or calls, or have them join like a class meeting so they're maintaining that connection and give them things to work on at home.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, folks, we are 15 minutes over time, and so I'm going to wrap it up for this evening. But please, I'm going to drop my email in the chat just in case you don't have it. But don't hesitate to reach out with questions. And you can also call the main office with Miss Alice and Miss Juana. They are veritable fonts of knowledge as well and can help you with a lot of details too. So hopefully this helped with a lot of the information that you were looking for this year. We're really excited to see the kids. That's why we do the work. And so it's boring to be at school without them there. So we're ready to see your children next week. And you guys are very welcome. I hope you guys all have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.